Item number 8, Budget Review Board of Commissioners. That's bad. Okay, it's been moved by Brown, supported by Kraft. Will
Steve?
Patty come up?
Oh, say, we don't have Steve come up to kick us off?
Patty and
Tell us-
Steve.
I'm just kidding. We don't have anything going on. Steve, tell us we have nothing
It's
new.
very static, which is good news. So, budget's on C19, no new positions, about a 6% decrease from the prior year. A lot of that's driven by the changes in the way we're charging pension and retiree healthcare chargebacks. Operating expenses, about a $500 increase in supplies and services, a $500 decrease or $500 decrease in supplies and services, corresponding $500 increase in conferences, seminars. Everything else is fairly unchanged. So, again, no new positions. I'll just turn it over to Patty.
Chair Smith wants to speak
Great.
for 1 second.
Although we don't have, no, not to you, Steve. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
don't have any questions for you.
Okay.
You're out.
You're free.
Obviously, there's no one in the audience to really hear this, but since we're a public body and this is being recorded, we will go through a general, quick budgetary presentation. Obviously, if any questions are afterwards, that's fine. I'm going to let Patty go through this since our staff normally takes care of all this stuff. I don't want to take credit for what you're doing. I'll speak to a few things that are going on in it, but Patty, take us away.
Okay. I just started with our presentation with our mission statement, and you can all read, so I know you probably have this memorized anyway. Basically, we're a public forum for the public to interact with their government, and you guys take care of the budgetary oversight. We have several current board programs that many have been in place for years and some are newer. And we try to expand, change, or adapt each year so that we better serve our public and also meet the goals of the commissioners. So the newest thing we did in 2017 was to adopt a resolution to establish an older adults advisory committee. And once the budget process is through, we'll go ahead and start with getting that in place. And we do have plans, future plans. We'd like to reinstate the Student Government Day, and we'd like to expand the Yoga at the Hill program because we've gotten several requests for that. And we would like to implement some current events roadshows. Just to recap some of the things that have been going on around the office in 2017. As Steve said, our expenses from year to year are about the same. What we did with some of our expenses last year is aside from Mike Keys becoming full-time and Laura becoming part-time, we brought Crystal on and we brought Mike O on and we brought Adriana on, and basically I was the one who stayed the same. So we had quite a bit of change in our staff, but everything's working great. We deployed the board sync system, including all of this technology that we're using right now, which we had no idea at this time last year what it was going to look like. So that's been a big change, but we've really rolled with it, and I'm super proud of the staff for educating themselves and the rest of us on it. Mike O, Mike K, Crystal, they're all really, really good with us. We've been sharing space with planning and economic development since mid-February, and that is supposed to come to an end at the end of this month. Supposed to. Anyway, they've been roommates with us, so we have kind of taken on some additional expenses for that, but we wanted to be a good neighbor and a good collaborative partner in the county. This next point, there were a lot of things that came up since we had our renovation done. And in order to make practical use of some of our space, we had to buy things, we had to change things. And those are things that we dealt with as a part of our regular budget. And we don't predict that we'll have expenses like that next year. We got a new copier, which was a great thing. And we got Surface devices. You might have noticed them with some of the staff. We've demoed them and tried them out, and we have built into the budget for all the commissioners to get those type of devices to take with you next year. So as part of our goals, we wanted to establish career tracks to challenge staff, to keep staff, and to develop skills. Did you want to go, or do you want me to keep going? Okay, all right. So in our 2018 budget submission, what we did was we subtracted the legislative analyst that we had projected adding in 2017 when we reviewed the budget in 2016. There's a couple reasons for that. We did do interviews, and we weren't successful at getting just the right fit. And so we have determined that that need is best addressed through contract services. And in order to keep up with the goals of the board, we added public relations manager, which is a position that is found elsewhere throughout the county in the Department of Roads and Public Works and some other departments. The budget net impact for that change is 0. We just basically switched out those 2 positions. Public relations manager will help address some commissioner outreach goals. Social media is basically the main way that most people receive their information, so we need to expand those channels. We need to fully utilize our video production capabilities, and these things require a higher technological skill set. And also, we think the public relations manager will be able to support an increase in commission district outreach activities. So just to give you all a hand throughout the county.
And just to add to that, Patty, is the legislative analyst position came around last year as a position we thought we needed for the budget, overall budgeting. When we started looking at it, when we started interviewing for it, when we realized that what was going on this year was a little different than what had been going on, realized that we could cover that position a little more finite with the contract services, but we also saw other needs going where we want to go with this commission, and back to the community outreach, the stuff that we used to do for years and years before we switched over this form of government. All of these positions kind of adapt year to year when you see what's going on until we finally get the perfect fit. Doesn't mean tomorrow we're going to go fill that position as a public relations manager. However, it leaves us a space for what I think, at least, the vision that we've been working on is taking us, the direction it's taken us. So go ahead.
Okay. So our 3 career tracks are administrative, and so we have people who are in positions that can see some room for growth, which is great for employee retention. And we have legislative, and we have communications and outreach. So these are just some of the things that you all have been doing this year. So doing a lot. So we support you as you carry out your charter duties. So far, we've had 33 budget presentations and reviews. And within those budget presentations and reviews, you have also received another at least more than half a dozen, or actually more than a dozen additional reviews. So it's really more like a number closer to 50 that you've digested so far. You've reviewed benchmarks, goals, and challenges, and are evaluating your method of oversight, and you're analyzing needs for public service delivery. And among the goals that we have heard as you guys have discussed budgets is that you're looking at fiduciary transparency, planning for the future, being responsible for public funds management, and updating policies and procedures. Okay.
Thanks, Patty. On the list, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. 2 things. The first is with regard to the public relations manager. I agree with the idea of the change. I wasn't I wasn't real keen with the way that we had it last year. In the end, I voted to support, but I was going to vote no all the way up until that day. But I have a question with regard to that position as well. One of the things that we don't have, which seems pretty basic for a body of our nature, is when we get calls from constituents and they need help out of community mental health and we're not sure how to do it, we don't have somebody that's designated for that, and I think that that's something that's pretty vital for this type of office. So is that also a role that the public relations manager could take on? Because it certainly isn't a full-time job, but I don't like trying to track it down, on my own sometimes, so.
Yeah, that was we actually had public relations manager / community outreach and constituent, responses and outreach. That is kind of what is hopefully going to fall under that person.
Okay, that would be really helpful. And then the second thing is, and
Commissioner Kleinfeld, just so you know, this position also will be kind of an evolving position, and we'll certainly sit down with everybody before it actually, we lock in the actual responsibilities to get the best grouping from everybody on that type of situation. Right?
Okay, thank you. The other thing is, and I brought it up last year with regard to conferences and training. We've got 12,950, and there are 13 of us, and we have a staff. And I don't know that all of our staff has gone through training with regard to the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act. It's something that comes up over and over again. I actually think we could bring in our attorney to do something with respect to that. But the Washington trip is an example. My understanding was that commissioners were paying their own way. That's what was conveyed to me. And so I went to my husband and he said, well, okay, we'll pay for it. And I called Mac and I said, listen, could you throw in like $400 towards my trip? And the director, Mac, said, you're not gonna pay for it. We want you to be there. But then I read in the newspaper that my understanding was not actually accurate with respect to the other commissioners. And this has happened before. So I'm really adamant this year, I let it go last year, each commissioner should have an allotment that belongs to them. And if they don't use it, that's fine. It could go into the general pot of the rest of the travel money. But one commissioner shouldn't be told no, and other commissioners are told yes. And nobody's going to the Michigan Association of County conferences, which is specific to our job, but people are traveling to other things. And I don't have an issue with that. But I do have an issue with I was just getting ready to pull out a checkbook for a couple $1,000, because of course I was staying the night and everything, but if I had paid for my own, I would have been quite upset to find out I was the only one to do that. So I really think that this number should increase, number one, because I think the board chair has to have a fair amount for them to travel, because they're going to have things that the rest of us don't necessarily have to do. But I also think there should be money in the pot for commissioners, and I think there should be a dedicated amount for each commissioner, and then maybe some left over. So it isn't all like, okay, I have 12, I have 1,000, we each have 1,000, there's 13 and that's it. But I want to increase that, and I would like an allotment. So that's my 2 cents, and if it doesn't make it into the recommendation sheet this year, I will be raising it as Sabatini did last year on some issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
Actually,
Vermont.
if you don't mind, Crystal has had training on Open Meetings Act. She's pretty much, she's got a binder, and she's really good at it. So she could probably run a little session for the rest of the staff if that's a concern for you, and we can go over that.
Yeah, I would. Again, the document for our closed session today is a public document. I've brought that up every month, I think, for about 4 or 5 months. It's still a public document. It will be one tomorrow. It will be one next month when it comes in, but it still gets marked confidential, and it still doesn't show up on the website. So I don't know how to get us there, because I
Well-
keep bringing it up.
That
But-
is, if the attorney's, Corporation Counsel marks it confidential, we don't change it. So that's how it's entered.
Okay, well, we have a discrepancy because he says it's a public document, so I don't know how we get there, if there
Well,
could be
it might be
communication.
just a matter of
But I do think
teaching Mo
also,
how to put it in.
not just the staff, I think that the board itself should have training on the Open
okay.
Meetings Act and yeah, I think that's very important. Thank you.
And then the other thing could be addressed through some sort of office policy that,
Thank you, Veronica. Next on the list, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Just two things here, if I may. Relating back to the new, somewhat new staff, being a somewhat new commissioner myself, well, new 11 months, along with 3 other commissioners for a total of 4. I don't know what your previous staff was like, Patty, but I tell you what, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking for them, I'm 100% satisfied with your current staff. They cannot do enough for us to make us knowledgeable enough in helping along with our jobs, and that's a big thing. Especially, well, I've had previous experience working with a council. Some of my commissioners have not, my new commissioners, and just the wave of going into this new position has been extremely easy for me with the staff that you have, and I shouldn't bring that up because they're going to ask for more money, I guess. But they are. I'm telling you, you've got a great staff. And at that time, while I'm blowing smoke, I might as well blow a little more smoke. I've been on a council, and I bring this up all the time, 19, almost 20 years. I have never, in those 19 or 20 years, and I mean this sincerely from my heart, worked with a more professional group of people, being my commissioners, that they have in this particular boardroom. And I'm proud to say that I'm a commissioner with these people. And I should have probably set this up sooner, but I had to get a take on all of you, and it took me a little while to do this. But I mean that. I'm very satisfied with what's going on. I'm satisfied with your group, and I'm really proud to serve with these commissioners. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions, comments for Patty? Thanks, Patty. And we do have a motion on the floor. Please vote. Receive and file. Thank you.